Hi, Charles. Thought I'd give you a video debriefing instead of a written debrief. It's easier to show you on the arrow links on the non-precision approach when I'm talking about. Just a couple of things on the debrief for the other segments. On the before taxi procedure, you want to go flaps 10 and then flight control check following that. I think you got the flaps extended as you were taxiing out. So normally we're going to do that as part of the before taxi procedure. On the rapid descent, we want to use flight level change for the pitch mode, not VNAV. VNAV's somewhat similar, but procedurally, nobody uses VNAV. So the checklist really doesn't tell you how to get into it. So you might want to look at that briefing again on the rapid descent because it's a specific procedure we go through in terms of spinning the altitude down, flight level change, thrust levers idle, speed brake deploy. The checklist really doesn't have the procedures on what pitch mode to use and things like that, but flight level change is the desired pitch mode. And then also make sure you deploy supernumerary oxygen. I think you're on the freighter, so you want to deploy that. And then as you get down to 2,000 before level off, that's normally where we want to bring the speed back to long-range cruise, which would be about 300 knots. And then 1,000 above, slowly stow the speed brake. That's procedurally, that's what we do on the rapid descent. On the non-precision approach, you can see I'm outside of Helzer at 4,000 for that RNAV 16 left that you did. And it's not wrong what you did to set the 700 in the window and then be in VNAV and let VNAV handle all the step downs. Some airlines do that. It procedurally for Boeing, what we do is we always set the next lower altitude. So in other words, as I'm approaching Helzer, I'm going to set 3,200 to Carfu. When I see I have 3,200 made at Carfu, then I'll set 1,900 at Douglas. And then when I see that I have 1,900s met, that I can make it, and I'm fairly sure that I'm going to cross at 1,900, then I'll set the DA of 720 or 766. So I'll set 700 in the window. And then when I pass the final approach fix, which is Douglas, and you're more than 300 feet below the missed approach altitude, and I believe the missed approach altitude here is, it's got that 2,000 foot altitude in there. So once you get below 1,700, which is 300 feet below the missed approach altitude, then you'd set the missed approach altitude of 2,000. You'll see what you did is you left it in there. You left the 700 feet in there, and then as you approached it, it went to VNAV alt because it captured that. And luckily, you didn't see anything, so you went around. But had it been, let's say, visual, and you were going to disconnect and land, it's enough of a interruption to capture the altitude, and the airplane will start to pitch up a little bit, and you'll get high. So we don't want, you're obviously obeying the 766 as far as the minimums go. And if you see nothing at 766, you're out of there. But if we leave the altitude at 700 feet, it's going to go ahead and capture that altitude as you come down in VNAV. And again, it didn't affect the missed approach too much, but had it been visual and you saw the runway, it would have captured and started to pitch up, and then you would have disconnected, and by that point you'd be high. We've seen it happen a lot. So you generally, once you're past Douglas and you're more than 300 feet below the missed approach altitude, which in this case would be 1,700, then you'd set the missed approach altitude, and that way you don't have that problem. The other problem is that we had you went around, which is fine, and then on the, you had the auto LNAV feature, so you didn't have to, call for LNAV or push LNAV yourself because you had that auto LNAV. But at 1,000 feet, you want to get a pitch mode engaged. And the pitch mode could be VNAV or flight level change and then bug the speed up. if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you'll capture that 2,000 feet. And what'll happen is the airplane will level off, but it won't go to the speed mode like it did in PMDG. If you watch your video again, just watch when you captured 2,000 feet, the auto throttle went to speed. That's wrong. That doesn't happen in the simulator or the airplane or the Aerowinks. You're going to see, and that's why I wanted to show you this, because I want to show you what happens. So I'm going to release the sim, and I'll do this non-precision approach and talk about some of these things as we go. So let me release, and then what I want to do on the go-around is kind of what you did and show you what would happen in the airplane if you did that. Okay, so we're outside of Heltz, and we're descending to 4,000. And I did park the ILS. Oh, also, you didn't have your minimum set. Make sure you always set your minimums in there for an approach. Okay, so we're in VNAV already, and we're cleared for the approach, so we'll go ahead and arm LNAV. And LNAV's engaged. And now we can set our next lower altitude. We got 4,000 or above at Heltzer. Looking at VNAV, the path is starting to come down, and it looks like it's going to maintain 4,000 at Heltzer. I could wait a little bit if I wanted to, just to make sure. But then I'll set my next lower altitude instead of 700. Again, nothing wrong with that. Some airlines do that, but not too many do that, because you're trusting that VNAV is going to obey all these. And it should, but Boeing likes to make sure and back it up with the altitude window. So see, we're coming up 4,000 Heltzer, it's holding it, so I'll set 3,200 in here next. And that's at Carfu. And so let's go gear down, flaps 20.
Gear down, flaps 20. Flaps 20, please.
Again, could you set 700 in here? Yeah, you could, and then you just monitor it. That it crosses at 4,000, it crosses at 3,200, it crosses at 1,900, and then down to the MDA. But again, the Boeing procedure, and since that's what I'm teaching you in this course. So you'll see this green arc come down, and that's referencing your current vertical rate to where you're going to cross at 3,200. And it should kind of fall right over Carfu, and you can see it's there. So that looks good. We're going to make Carfu at 3,200, no problem there. So I'll set my next lower altitude, which is 1,900 at Douglas. So I'm just kind of stepping it down just to make sure VNAV is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So here comes Carfu at 3,200 or above. And now you'll see the arc is over Douglas now. We're on the path. And again, as I approach Douglas, I'll set my next lower altitude. And if I'm comfortable with it, I could even do that now. But I see that the arc is right over, the altitude range arc is right over Douglas. Okay, so my next altitude, let's go to flaps 30.
Flaps 30. Flaps 30.
2,500.
Now we'll do the landing checklist. Speed brake arm, landing gear down, flaps 30, landing checklist complete. Okay, so now my next altitude is going to be the MDA. DA, since we're doing an RNAV. And that's going to be 766. So we'll set 700. And again, it's to cross Caleb at or below 2,000 and Milt at or above 5,000. So there's Douglas at 1,900. And now we're inside of Douglas, and we're going to wait till we're 300 feet below the missed approach altitude, and our missed approach altitude is 2,000. So once I'm below 1,700, and you can see I'm there right now, now I'd set the missed approach altitude. Now, you could set 5,000 and use VNAV. I'm going to set 2,000. I'm still going to use VNAV, but I'm going to set 2,000 in it. This would be the Boeing procedure to set the lower altitude in there. But see, now when I get to 766 feet, I make the decision to go around or continue and land. And if I continue and land, it's going to be right on the path, and all I have to do is disconnect the autopilot, disconnect the auto throttle, and land. But if I keep it at 700, it's going to capture that 700, and it's going to go to VNAV alt, and then the airplane will start to level off, and you'll be high.
Terrain. Pull up.
Let's see, yeah, that's, again, the database.
Terrain.
I don't know why it's doing it in Seattle now.
Approaching minimums.
Okay, so I'm going to go around here.
Minimums.
They go around thrust. Flaps 20. Positive right gear up.
Flaps 20 degrees. Positive climb. Gear up.
Okay, 400 feet, I'll go to LNAV. You had auto LNAV. But now I'm not going to do anything. Now at 1,000 feet, normally I should go to a pitch mode, VNAV or flight level change. I'm not going to do that, because this is kind of what you did. But see what it does here? It goes to alt, and notice what the pitch mode is. It's thrust reference. It's not speed like in the PMDG. So what's going to happen, I'll go flaps 10.
Localizer active.
I'll go flaps 5.
Flaps 5. Flaps 5 3.
I'll go flaps 1. I'm just going to clean up completely. And then I'll go flaps up.
Flaps up.
Okay, now the problem is that when people do this and they don't select a pitch mode, like I didn't intentionally, this is what happens. And then they won't notice the speed starting to run away with them. See, it's starting to run away now, and they're going to wonder, why is the speed going up? And they'll go ahead and do this. They'll set the bug. But then they'll still see the speeds going up. Well, we're in thrust reference, that's why. It's going to the reference thrust. And so I'd have to put myself into speed mode now. But a lot of people won't recognize it till the speed gets like this. And then you just violated 250 knots and everything. So the moral of the story is you have to select a pitch mode at 1,000 feet, VNAV or flight level change. And then when it captures the altitude, it'll go to speed. And again, if you look at your video in the PMDG, you'll see it captured the altitude, but it did go to speed, and that's wrong. It doesn't do that in the airplane. Didn't do it in here. It just went thrust reference, and then you had no speed control, basically. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's it. So I just wanted to make you that short video just to point that out, to show you what it does in the Aerolinks. And that is correct. It would do that in the airplane and in the simulator. But the PMDG, it actually kind of saved you there. All right, that's it. Thanks, Charles. Good job.